So just real quick about me. I'm 28. Been with one of the federal agencies for 6 years now. Um, I'm a close personal protection agent and a firearms instructor. So I protect high level government officials, and then do the M4, MP7, and handgun and shotgun courses that my agency has. So a lot of my coaching experience is in firearms, not necessarily physical training, but that's a huge blind spot that we see um, in some of our training. Is we see people come out and they do their shooting, but you know they can't stand right, they can't kneel right, they can't just move their bodies through space. And one of the things that we always say, in a combat environment is mobility equals survivability. So if you're not mobile, fast, you you're not gonna be able to survive the encounter. So currently seeking my ATG endorsement, and then my CrossFit level 1, and then my CSCS as well. And then God willing, January 2022, I'm going to be opening a box close to DC, and then leaving my federal job. It's one of those things we've talked about on the Pulse, just about this holistic health and wellness. I've already worked 870 hours of overtime this year. And the equivalent, so in the last 6 years, I've worked 12 years worth of 40-hour work weeks. And it's just not healthy or sustainable for any of our agents, but trying to help out where I can. And I think the physical training side of it is one of those areas. So real quick, who are tactical athletes? I'm going to be talking about integrating ATG principles into tactical athlete training. So tactical athletes are anyone where basically your fitness determines your ability to survive, at least in the short term. Military, law enforcement, firefighters, all those folks. And then why ATG? Like why bring ATG into this tactical athlete training? Traditionally, this training has looked like push-ups, running, pull-ups. I know Michelle and I have talked about a little bit that there's kind of the old way that the military and law enforcement has trained their people, and then there's a new wave starting. I know the Army changed their physical aptitude test, and that's really good to see, and I hope that it continues to push forward. But we haven't seen that same change in law enforcement. We were just talking with Mark about the longevity. Average length of like an NFL player is like a season or a season and a half, but the average career of a tactical athlete is 20, 25 years. And we need agents that are just as mobile, just as strong when they're 57 as they are when they're 21, when they first come into the agency. Again, we talked about the stakes of tactical athletes. If I'm not mobile and strong, I may not come home at the end of the night. So just my agency, we do tests when they come in, these physical abilities tests, which includes a shuttle run, that stair climb and descend, and then a reverse dummy drag. And as many of you may, see, like that reverse dummy drag is just the reverse out knee pain, like the warm up. And then the stair climb and descend is the Poliquin step up. And so like we see the need to have these strengths, but then as we go into training, it primarily consists of like long cadence runs. And if you're not familiar with those are the like, well, my grandma was 72, like where everyone's stepping on the beat. So you're forcing this like unhealthy cadence of running in everyone. Push-ups, and then what we affectionately call front leaning rest, which is where you receive a lot of your instruction. It's in the top of the push-up position. In defensive tactics, we see like really explosive movement, and then getting put in really compromised positions for the shoulder, elbows, and wrists during handcuffing. You'll get handcuffed like 100 times in a day during training, and so you're constantly getting cranked on. So we saw a lot of shoulder injuries. And then after the academy, we definitely have the facilities to do the training, but none of the time. And, we already talked about how, we're just getting crushed in terms of overtime. So getting something like ATG that you can do in 20 or 30 minutes and is accessible for these agents, I think is super important. The common injuries that we see, we're carrying 25 pounds or 11 kilos worth of kit just on the law enforcement side. Military carries way more than that, upwards of 70 pounds in a ruck. But we've got the body armor, and then I'll carry up to 3 weapons worth of ammunition on my belt, my handgun, medical equipment, radio, handcuffs, all that jazz. Predominantly in the last couple of months, I've found myself being the driver of the armored car. And I don't know if any of you have been inside those. They're super cramped in spaces, so you're hunched over the steering wheel. So we get tight hamstrings, tight knees, lower back pain, all these things. Consecutive 16 to 18-hour shifts that you may have, 10 or 12 of those in a 2-week period. So you're seeing lack of sleep, mental fatigue. I personally have gained 15 pounds this year, just because, and not the good kind. So looking to reverse all those things. The stress fractures, shin splints from excessive running. A lot of us, when we come into the academy, we don't have the kind of the miles earned in terms of the strong tendons and the ability to put the strain on our legs. We just kind of jump into it. And then shoulder, hip, groin injuries from defensive tactics. I know a bunch of the coaches do BJJ, and so they're going to understand this internally focused dominance where you're trying to control somebody here and you never open up. So we see with those band pull aparts, starting some of these workouts with the band pull aparts is super important for law enforcement and even during shooting, you're creating inward pressure, that internal rotation to accept the recoil. Okay. Just a quick caveat. Whenever we're talking about firearms, I don't know what your guys' level of training is with them, but the 4 firearm safety rules: treat all weapons if they're loaded, never point a weapon at anything you aren't willing to destroy, keep your fingers straight and outside the trigger guard until you're ready to fire, know your target, back, stop, and down. And then all these photos that I've taken, they were taken in a controlled space using an unloaded weapon, just in case you guys wonder. So you see in these highlighted portions in red here, you're going to be seeing a ton of the knees over toes positioning. These photos are kind of campy because I had to take them in my backyard because we're not allowed to take any photos in the training environment just because of privacy concerns. And we'll just kind of breeze through these. But in a standing shooting position, you find yourself kind of loaded to accept the recoil. In this kneeling position, we have agents that can't even get down to the kneeling position because tightness and weakness and that kind of thing. So they'll have to leave the gun holstered, kind of use their hands on their knees to slowly work their way down to the kneeling and then draw the weapon. That's just not safe, especially for if you're in the middle of a gunfight. And you can see in this one here, you're basically using that human knee ability to get up out of that position. So in all these positions, you can see that ATG is going to really, really help out these agents to get into an advantageous spot. In the prone, here again is, this looks a lot like that thoracic tricep that we end up doing in dense, getting the elbows below the shoulders. And then on using cover, whether you're squatting below a car, you need to be in this knee over toe, or this far right picture here. It's basically a ATG split squat, just with your knee tucked in for a little bit more stability. And then under load, when we're doing this quadratus lumbaris, strengthening, you need to be able to protect your spine. So this is a 200-pound sandbag, and we use that to simulate if a teammate or your protectee is incapacitated. You need to have the strength to protect your spine from the flexion there. So all these kind of come together for like a sample training course. You'd start at point one in the prone position. You'd quickly get up to a standing, sprint into two. When you get to two, you need to be able to get down to a kneeling as fast as possible. A lot of times we're working on gravel. Like you need to have stability in your knees and ankles. And we see people get hurt all the time. Moving from point 2 to 3 is still kneeling, and then 3 to 4. As soon as you get to 4 and you're about to take a shot down on target 4, you're loading your knee in a huge way, the same way that Ben explains as you're like coming into a jump for a dunk, your knee is in that same position as you're coming in quickly to a point of cover, and you're putting a lot of strain in your knee. So and then as you're moving through these red cones here, we work through crowds a lot. So you're changing position, putting a ton of stress on your knees. So as we go through these, you just see that there's so much that ATG is able to kind of fix in this law enforcement sphere. We kind of breeze through a little bit, but ATG fills a lot of the gaps found in these traditional tactical athlete training models. There's a lot of focus on the anterior side of your body. And so you miss out, you become super imbalanced. And so we're trying to fix that and incorporate it slowly. A lot of times I only get these guys and gals for an 8-hour day once every 6 months. So I have to kind of give them tools that they can use on their own to fix these imbalances. As Mark talked about, we can prevent reverse injuries and the chronic pain sustained from sitting in trucks and standing on marble and constantly being internally focused. And I've been really, really enjoying ATG because it makes that strength and mobility accessible. You know, you spend $40 on Amazon for that collapsible slant board, pack it into your luggage. In my job, I spend 3 weeks on the road a year, or 3 weeks on the road every month. So I'm working out of a hotel gym a lot of the time. So you have dumbbells from 5 to 50, and then whatever you bring. So I'll bring a slant board, and I can do a lot of the dense programming in a hotel room just with a collapsible slant board. So it's been really great. Interjecting the ATG training into both the shooting and the physical training that we do as agents. That's what I've got in terms of training tactical athletes with ATG.
Yeah, really cool. There's a different perspective there. I don't know if guys have questions coming up here from what you
Absolutely.
want to talk about. But yeah, phenomenally, like different application. You see stressful and important positions and whatnot. It's I hadn't really thought about that perspective in detail like you presented there. So it's a good one, and definitely one, where longevity is going to be massive, because turnover is going to have a huge cost in terms of retraining and just ability to do things to get the job done.
Yeah, in terms of like us getting a new agent, it takes us probably close to 9 months from start to finish, and conservatively probably $200,000 for the agency to train an agent from start to finish. So if you're constantly having injured agents, the hugely important. And I hadn't really thought of the economic value for the agency. And that's another thing. In DC, we have 60 or 70 different law enforcement agencies. And so there's a huge opportunity here in the DC area to inject that ATG mentality into all of the different training academies that are here.
ideally some of those people will recognize through your background when if you're setting up this private facility, that they can increase their longevity and performance and safety by working with you. Is that kind of the vision there?
Say again?
You're looking at having a facility where you can use that sort of reputation that you've built and credibility to attract some of those people privately to work with you. Is that the idea with the facility, or is it to go into a different population completely?
No, it'll be kind of leveraging that experience and doing that. And it'll be in a fairly rural area that's about 30 minutes outside DC. So depending on what the liability looks like, we should be able to both shoot in the facility and also do workouts. So you'll combine them, that high stress factor of the shooting, combined with the physical training as well.
Are there people doing that? Have you seen other facilities that offer that?
No, nobody here. There's people in rural Montana, and they host the tactical games every year. I don't know if any of you guys have seen that, but it's basically the CrossFit games, but with the added element of shooting. So strap a rifle to your back, run a half marathon, and every mile you have to shoot, 2 quarter-mile shots at a target, and then there's penalties and all that.
Yeah, it's cool. Doing something unique there for sure. How's it been with introducing this? Like, what sort of feedback are you getting? Mark was sort of speaking about the resistance. It's interesting to hear those. You all spoke about the human side of that. Like, talk to us more about that side, Ben.
So the younger agents are super excited about kind of like preventing these injuries, because we see the older agents barely able to bend over, or a lot of like the chronic pain. So I've gotten really good feedback there. And a lot of what I'm doing right now is just doing the 0 for free. So I'll give them the 0 exercises and be like, hey, I want you to work on this when you're on the road. I want you to work on this when I don't get to see you. And then as we shift into an actual facility, we'll start in on the dense and start to build that way. And I've gotten a lot of hard resistance from some of the older agents that just say, no, I've got back pain. This is just my lot in life. So if you guys have suggestions on how to even just start that conversation and be like, listen, man, I don't have a cure-all pill, but we can work with wherever you start from. We can work on that. And I think it's just going to be finding 1 or 2 people that'll buy into it, and then having the people see the changes that those guys can make, and then slowly just letting it spread throughout the agency.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from some of the people that are tuning in. Thoughts around that? Sure.
I think we're trying to sell it to people. So we got a saying here at the gym when we're talking sales for our gym memberships is we don't sell things to people that don't want it or don't need it. So if they're going to carry on like that, we just whatever. All right, sweet. But they'll always have a friend that we influence. They'll always have a kid that will influence. And then they'll go, oh, maybe it is. One, we should, with the ATG, we've started just showing them Ben's YouTube clips and Instagram, and they're like, holy shit. And then 2, it might be a little fix. Like if they've got back pain now, and just doing something simple, we'll get their hamstrings or their hips and just open them up and go, is it 10% better? Is it 1% better? If it's any percent better, we're on the right track. And we can get you 100% better. You don't have to live like that. But there's some people that, I don't know, you're never going to convince.
Yeah, I found that I'm 6'1", 240 pounds. And when a guy my size drops into a full knees over toes squat, it at least makes people stop for a second and be like, whoa,
Yeah, exactly.
like you're not
Yeah.
supposed to be able to do that.
Yeah, and that's what we kept saying, that practice what you preach sort of thing. Like, and I had the mentality up to a year ago of saying with rugby, oh, I'm too old. I'm only 34 in a couple of months. I'm like, but I'm too old. I'm getting too many injuries and too this. I'm like, now I've changed around. And no, you're just lazy and you weren't doing ATG. You weren't looking after yourself. And now if I can go and play and I can show 20-year-olds that are carrying on like I was, no, it doesn't have to be like that. But it's that practice what you preach mentality.
It's got to be the right message. It's got to be at the right time. Not everybody is going to be ready for it right now, but it doesn't mean they're not going to be ready for it a month from now. And just practicing asking those questions. The 1% better thing is a really good thing. But just asking questions around the point of, would you like to see it improve, or what impact would it make if we were able to get a little bit better, or what would you do if back pain wasn't impacting your training, your career, or your family life, whatever. But often people have been to medical experts and doctors and whatnot and specialists, and that locks in the belief because they see those people as the authority, and the people of authority have said, this is you forever. But I think Ben's stuff is really powerful with that. Like, you can, I think you can, if you can get him to watch one of his short videos that talks about, this is a guy that I learned from. He had multiple knee surgeries. He wanted to play in the NBA. Just telling that story in like 2 minutes, people are like, oh, check it out. And then would you just watch? Would you be willing to watch a video? Like, I know you don't want to train or do anything, but would you be willing to watch a video? You send him the video about back pain, and I think using a third party can really be powerful as well. Like, I use a lot of third party kind of to get my message across. To an extent, that's what I'm doing with Ben with ATG. It's like, he's so credible with this. Like, it's my mission that I've wanted to impact the way the world trains. And working with Ben means that I'm actually, achieving that mission much more than I ever could have imagined, So I think recommending, like, using those third parties is a huge thing. And some of you guys have said that you're already doing it. And it doesn't have to be you versus them. If you can bring in that someone else, as Zach was saying as well, like the example that's close to them, someone around their age, or someone who's had, even worse back surgeries and experiences. Like, if you do have those stories around, that can help a lot too. But yeah, there's got to be a desire for change, and then provide them with those role models and the method.